can take away everything that I ever worked for. I'ma keep on pushing till I earn more. I won't ever fall. Won't ever break. Won't ever crack. Won't ever. Won't ever. Won't ever. Won't ever. Call it quits. Call it quits.
Hey guys, welcome back to BUCH Cast. This is Boris. I'm very excited to have you guys on for this episode. We got a special guest. I'm here with my co-host Yuri.
How's it going, guys? We got a very special guest today. His name is Vadim Barash. He's also Ukrainian. Has quite a nice backstory. Wanted to see if you could get started with that. How old were you when you came here to America?
I'm 47. I came to United States of America in 1991, and I was 16 years old. Out of former USSR.
Yeah?
From Ukraine. I was born and raised in a little tiny city called Lviv, and came here directly from Ukraine straight to Columbus, Ohio. Never left.
Nice.
Been here for almost 30 years.
Wow.
Why Columbus?
My grandmother's brother, my granduncle, who's passed away, lived here for a long time. And back in good old days when immigration was controlled and legal, you had to come to a family member or somebody who co-signed for you and who invited you over and who literally was responsible for your well-being. And if you became a criminal or something bad, they were held responsible. So there was accountability.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Same as when my parents came over too.
Yeah.
So you left when it was still communism, Soviet
Yes.
Union.
Yes. I grew up in Ukraine, but we had to, quote unquote, oblige to both cultures. We had to stand to the Russian national anthem and Ukrainian national anthem. So as I'm watching in America, people kneeling to one anthem, we had to stand to two anthems. And then we went through the whole communistic party brainwashing session where we had to wear the little handkerchiefs, and we belonged to a party of communists at the age of 7. We had uniforms, and I don't know if you guys remember those days. If you ever saw pictures, there were pionere. We used to walk around and salute and do all that stuff and wear brown uniforms and red little handkerchiefs. And we had a little Lenin pin on our uniforms.
What did the handkerchief signify?
It was more unified that, you had to learn how to tie it, and it was red collar. It was a triangle in the back and two little things here, and it was literally you signifying being a communist at the age of 7.
Yeah. Yeah. My parents, or my grandparents, on my mom's side, didn't want to do that stuff, so they got persecuted and stuff.
Yep.
My grandma was in jail for being a Christian in Soviet Union. So is that, in your opinion, do you think all that stuff is different than what's happening now in America, or is it leaning towards the same?
I
same
think that everything in life begins with mind control. I don't think you control humans by physically controlling them. I think you control humans at first by controlling their minds. It is a lot easier to control humans if you create groups and then divide groups. And if one group has a following and then the other group has a following, it's a lot easier to have them fight with each other versus paying attention to the government, quote unquote. Mm-hmm. And so then one group dominates the other at some point. I think what people here do not understand and have seen is how it really works, because they've been privileged enough not to experience that. I think when we grew up from a very young age, we were told that becoming a communist and having a little communistic ID that all of the adults carried, are you a communist? They had the little pocket IDs, was a way of achieving something. Okay, if you didn't have a little communistic ID, you were a failure, and you were prosecuted, and you were looked upon as not a member of the party that ruled the world. So are we quite there here in America yet? Nah, I'm hoping not. Are we heading in that direction? It sure seems like it. Are we having groups and sectors that we are being more divided than united? Without a doubt. Are we being guided and brainwashed on a consistent basis here? More than ever. I came in 91. I'll tell you a funny story. So when you come to a different country, people always ask you, how high was your bar? Now, where is your bar set? Like, what were your expectations and how did you get there and what did you experience and all that, right? So I'll tell you where my bar was set, okay? I never told you this before. So we came in 1991 in November, and I vividly remember I was a 16-year-old child. We flew from Ukraine, nonstop flight. We had to stop somewhere and refuel. Back in the day, you were allowed to smoke in the airplane.
Yeah.
So there were clouds of cigarette smoke. You know, mind you, all Ukrainians and Russians smoke nonstop.
Yeah.
You literally sit in this little bubble for 16 hours with, landing somewhere. People smoke nonstop and drink vodka. So by the time we got to New York, it was like, you came out of there like, wow.
It was like hot box.
It was like, wow. You came out like, let me get some fresh air. So we got in New York, spent maybe an hour in New York. We changed flights and came to Columbus. When we landed, my granduncle took all of us in 2 cars and they took us to his house. And it was about 10 o'clock at night. And we got there still completely shell-shocked, right? I mean, different place, different country, different language. And he says, oh my God, I forgot milk. There were, we had the stable set up for dinner and there were all these wonderful foods I've never seen before. And he's like, I'm going to go get milk. And I looked at my mother and I said, it's 10 p.m. Where is he going to get milk? Because where I grew up, milk was given out on Tuesdays. And as a young child, I had to stand there with little bidon. Those are like little containers, metal containers, and wait for 3 to 4 hours to get my milk filled. And if you got to the front of the line and milk was gone, you didn't get milk. So when he said, I'm going to go get milk at 10 o'clock at night, I was like, all right, this is going to be good. So then he's like, you want to come with me? And I'm like, all right, where are we going at 10 o'clock to get milk? This will be interesting. I'm like, sure. He said, we're going to go to Kroger. And I had no idea what Kroger was. So we get in his car and we drive out. And so this was like literally one of those movies where, like you walk in at 10 o'clock at night into this big bright store with all the neon lights in it and the shelves are full of stuff and there was a shelf with like 20 different milks. And I stood there literally just completely frozen. Like I was 16 years old and I was frozen. I've never seen anything like this in my life. And so that's when my bar was set.
Yeah.
I was like, if we don't drop below this, right?
Yeah.
Like we don't drop below this point, this life is amazing. Now we're fast forwarding almost 30 years. I went to Kroger in New Albany 2 days ago and there was no milk.
Yeah.
You know how here, like, we're kind of divided, like 50-50 politically, socially, whatever.
Sure.
What was, like, the general sentiment back home, back in Ukraine? Was it, like, leaning towards one side?
Well, I think when I was growing up, I didn't care. When you were young enough, up to a certain age, you just want to hang out with your friends. So you don't really pay attention to which party, which way, who's what, and who's how. I always heard the rumblings of people that didn't want to comply, quote unquote, with what was shoved down their throats by the government. Once I got to about age of 15, I started paying more attention. And I think it was almost like if you did not listen and belong to a certain party, you were outcasted. And that's what scares me the most here now is that we have a party that doesn't care about anyone's opinion. And if it's not their way, that 50-50 thing disappears. To answer your question, the 50-50 number is disappearing. I think a lot of people are really scared of expressing their opinions. There is a reason, now think about this. There is a reason that all of a sudden we have this expression, the silent majority. Mm-hmm. 2 questions are, where did it come from? I didn't hear that 6 years ago, the silent majority, right? And number 2, why are they silent?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, I don't know what's out there and how it works, but I think we're so much more than 50-50 at this point.
Yeah.
I think we're thinking it's 50-50. I think there's a lot more people that feel and think the same we are. They're just called a silent majority, and I don't understand why they're silent. In Russia, you couldn't express your opinion, or former USSR. It was more of shut up and do as we say. And if you expressed your opinion, somebody knocked on your door at 10 o'clock at night, nobody ever saw you again.
That was by force, but now it's a whole different level of censorship. Now there's certain words, anti-vax and anti-this and anti-this, anti-government. Those videos get just taken down. It's a whole different level. It's crazy.
So you got to remember, we said this earlier, you've got to control the mind. You have to condition the mind. If the mind is conditioned and controlled that it cannot say certain words, cannot express certain opinions, then the majority becomes more and more silent. And that is the part that you hope never becomes prevalent in this country, where you're afraid to express your opinion. That you have to use hashtags and stars and different symbols
Yeah.
to
Black squares.
to
Yeah.
type something in the internet so you don't get censored or banned.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was at a doctor yesterday. I got a little procedure coming up. I went to see my doctor yesterday. He apologized 3 times before he asked me. And he asked me this question. He said, I have to ask you this based on new physical forms. I said, okay. Do you feel like a man or a woman today? True story. Yesterday happened to me. I
3
said,
times he asked you?
I said to him, I feel like a man today. Can I change my mind tomorrow? He said, you'll be surprised. And so that's the part where I'm having a lot of difficulty with myself, is the lines are getting really blurry. And the question is, how far can we take the lines?
Mm-hmm.
How much blurrier can we make them?
How much of an effect did media and news have in Soviet Russia on people's beliefs and brainwashing?
Probably very little. Yeah.
We had no media and news. It was only one station.
Yeah.
And
Controlled by the
it was controlled by the government. And there was nothing else. And you had to hit the TV multiple times to get any other picture because it was so
Box
blurry.
TV,
There was only one station that was perfectly clear. And it's exactly what they wanted you to hear. There was nothing else. There was no media. There was no news. It was all controlled by the government. And you received exactly what they wanted you to. I vividly remember photos of, army parades and our government standing on top of Kremlin, saluting each other and all that. That's the message. It was nonstop. We were brainwashed from the day we opened our eyes out of mother's womb.
Seems like CNN with all their BS and vaccine stuff right now.
Fear, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you were embedded fear from the day you were born. You were embedded fear from that you're going to get attacked by the America, that non-communistic parties within Russia, USSR were going to destroy what we have. You were literally brainwashed from the moment you open your eyes that the only way of living is what the government gave you. And they protected you from the outside world and the terrorists within, which were the people that didn't belong to communistic party. So if you felt that I want to believe in God, and I believe that, God's my savior, and I don't want to believe in Jesus. I believe in Jesus Christ, but I don't want to believe in, government being my savior. That was prosecuted. If you believe that, there is other things to life than having a little communistic card, you were prosecuted. If you wanted to express your opinion and go out in the streets and make signs and stand there and protest, you were prosecuted. If you wanted to speak against the government, you were prosecuted. There was no freedom. And I think it all boils down to how much time has passed from the day of 1917, where they were fighting for freedom, to the day that there was no freedom. Culturally, nobody asked that question, because in 1917, the revolution, quote unquote, under Marx and Engels and Lenin, was fought for freedom. It is amazing how it translated from fighting for freedom to no freedom at all. Mm-hmm. Within literally 5 years.
Because people got comfortable.
The government was going to take care of us all.
Yeah.
But then with the interesting question is with the amount of control the government had, and with how they persecuted people, how did all that eventually collapse? Because there must have been enough people that were against it that stood up and must have done things to lead to its collapse, right?
Well, it's almost like, I don't know what example to give you, but it's almost like, how much can you abuse someone?
Till they snap. Yeah.
Right. The question is, how much tolerance do you have, right? A good friend of mine uses an example of life in simple form. He says life is all a balance between pain and pleasure. If the pain's up here and the pleasure's right, if the pleasure's here and pain's here, you're fine. You're going to be very happy. And they start coming together somewhere, and let's say pain and pleasure are like here, you're still like, oh, it's okay, it's balanced out, right? But when the pain starts overweighing the pleasure, that's the question of tolerance. How much tolerance? People have this thing, how much pain can you tolerate? Oh, my pain tolerance level's high. I can get a surgery, I don't need painkillers. And somebody gets, a paper cut, and they're like, oh, give me opioids. I got to stay drugged out because I can't deal with a paper cut, right? So that's the tolerance level, right? And so there are people that are being tested today on a tolerance level of how much you can tolerate. And so at some point, what a lot of people here don't understand, I think, is that, okay, let's back up for a second. So this is a very young country. 270 years, right? I mean, America is a very young. It's probably one of the youngest countries on the planet, if you look at it. If you look at European countries that have been in existence for thousands of years, if you look at Middle East, it's thousands of years. If you look at, Asia's thousands of years, we are a very young country. The hope is that we have evolved as humans, quote unquote, to a point we don't have to resort to guns and knives and violence to resolve our problems. You look at history of other countries over thousands of years, they didn't have the advanced mental capacity at the time. They resorted to guns and violence to resolve their problems. So when people here say we're going to revolutionize this, I'm like, you've never lived through a revolution. Revolution is not a good word. Here we somehow embraced it. We're going to revolutionize this. We're going to revolution. I'm like, revolution typically means dead people. Lots of dead people. Lots of blood. Lots of homeless kids. Revolutions are never good. Like ever. It's not a good word. So I hear it more and more in the news. Revolution, revolution. I'm like, don't use that loosely. It doesn't end well. So is this country ready for one? Because it's so young and hasn't had one, really. We had a civil war. It's not a revolution. Is it ready for one where people rise and revolutionize things? I hope not. I truly hope it doesn't happen. We all live in a great society. We have wonderful things. We enjoy our lives. We have kids.
So what do you think? What do you think we should each and every one of us do to prevent communism from spreading here and put a stop to the communism that's coming so far?
I think knowledge and history is probably the answer to a lot of it. I think there are a lot of uneducated, lazy people that don't understand that taking time to learn about the communism and socialism, quote unquote, and understanding. Here's the best example. So in Russia, we had everything free, yet we had nothing. And let that sink in for a second. We had everything free, but we had nothing. Quote unquote, nothing's free. Mm-hmm. If it's free, you're going to have nothing. So I think we need to start educating a generation. If you think about it, it's all generational too, right? So you've got a generation right now that wants to destroy everything this country stands for. It's not everybody. It's not, it's just a certain generation that wants to destroy it all, change it all, and make it whatever they feel like it needs to be. I think that's the generation that's lacking the historical knowledge of where that leads. And so personally, I will start by saying I'm going to educate my kids. And so I have a 20-year-old son that's been really educated by my wife and I as to what communism really is and socialism really is. And I think if we educate our younger generation and explain to them and teach them lessons, like destroying monuments, burning flags, getting rid of history is the dumbest thing a generation can do. We've seen that all over the world. First of all, you can't erase it. Okay? And second of all it does is sends a wrong message. I could personally do podcasts like this and tell people that communism is not good. It just really isn't good. There's nothing positive about communism and socialism. Zero. Like if you ask me, well, give me one good thing about it, it doesn't exist. There's nothing positive. And I think the educational piece is what's lacking. I think we need to tell and spread the word to others that it is not a good thing. It really isn't.
Yeah.
Do you think that the majority of young people just haven't ever experienced anything like that, and they've gotten too comfortable and think
Complacent.
that everyone has it as good as America?
Here's the interesting thing. Everyone has an opinion about how we should be without visiting they've never been to.
Yeah.
I recommend before you tell the world how bad America is,
Yeah.
spend a week in Nigeria.
Venezuela,
Haiti.
yeah.
Go to Venezuela for about a week.
Yeah.
Go to Haiti for a month.
Golly.
I mean, go places you've never been. Heck, go try to live in Germany for a month.
Yeah.
I mean, your entire living quarters will be the size of this room, including toilet and a bathroom, so you can afford.
Yeah.
If you want to be all sophisticated and educated about how bad we have it, travel.
Yeah.
Go explore. 90% of people that have opinions about how bad this country is never left this country to go anywhere else, but yet they want to tell you how bad this is. And so, with that being said, I can't use profanity here, but opinions are like what everybody has one,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Everybody has an opinion,
Yeah.
and it doesn't mean it's right. It doesn't mean it's wrong. It's just you cannot express an opinion without knowing what's out there. I will tell you that this is an amazing country, and probably the best place on the planet to live. We just need to preserve it, to make sure we keep it as the forefathers of ours have thought of it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, going back to that point where 90% of people haven't left this place. I mean, it just blows my mind. Everyone needs to see some actual third world countries. Just like I remember going to Haiti a couple of years ago for 2.5 weeks, and when I was leaving, oh man, that was the government just took over. I mean, if people really want to see what third world is, they need to go somewhere like that. But I remember when I was packing up my stuff, like all these kids running around, no shoes, no shirts, nothing, like bruises, like stuff on their legs, like these it's just gross, like no medical care, nothing. And I had to leave like my whole suitcase. I'm like, whatever, I'll save $50 on the airport anyways.
Sure.
But I left everything because I'm like, dude, these people have nothing.
Right.
They have nothing.
Right.
And these families that have like 7, 8, 9, 10 kids all sleeping like you mentioned, like in this room, but like half of this room size, and all of them are just like laying next to each other. I'm like,
Right.
wow.
Right.
Then I came home to my king size bed. I'm like, wow, we're overprivileged. Like we have it
Yes.
way too good here,
Yes.
way too good.
Right.
So it's just it's crazy.
I agree. I think people should go out there and explore what's out before they make a decision to this is bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's transition from that. What do you currently do, and how did you come to doing what you do?
I am in real estate, and real estate became part of my life because my wife made me. I graduated and got into criminal justice. My original idea of criminal justice was I was going to help everyone and save their lives. I quickly realized I couldn't do that, so I went from that to enforcing the rules. And at some point, my wife said it was not a job for a married man. And so we got into real estate together. We joined a company here locally. It was at the time called King Thompson. And in 2001, they sold the company. And my wife and I embarked on owning our own businesses. So we've been entrepreneurial ever since. We operated real estate brokerages, did development, you name it, we've done it. Retail stores, whatever. Currently, I have a real estate brokerage. It's here in Columbus, Ohio. It's called Next Home. We have about 120 people that practice real estate out of our brokerage, do some development, some other stuff. So real estate is the answer.
Yeah, to sum it all up.
What is your opinion of? Seems like everyone that we know, and I'm sure you've seen. I think last 2 years, we've gotten 2,000 new agents, 3,000 new agents. Do you think that's a good thing for our industry?
Let's compare this to any other good industry. From Obamacare to socializing the system to, using some sort of controlled medical approach to the system. Yet, everybody in the world, if something bad happens, wants to come to America for a surgery. If they have a big medical problem, where do they want to go? The United States. If you have something, you have rare diseases, where do you want to go? To the United States. But yet we want to change all of that and make it different so that no one comes here and goes somewhere else. With that being said, Imagine for 1 second if you are dealing with hip replacements. And in 1 year, you brought 2,000 hip replacement doctors into an industry. And out of those 2,000 people, locally, just in one state, and out of those 2,000 hip replacement doctors, all of a sudden, 1,999 of them were part-time. The question is, would you ever go to that doctor to get your hip replaced? No, absolutely not. You would be insane to do that, right? We're the only industry as real estate professionals that allows to bring 2,000 brand new agents into a marketplace in 1 year and allows for these people to practice part-time or as a hobby.
Yeah.
With that being said, the requirements for those people are identical to those that make a living out of selling real estate, that do 50 transactions a year, that provide for their family, that know the market, understands how to write offers. They know how to negotiate a deal. They know the nuances of the transaction. They know how to get the best price on a selling side or the buying side. They understand how to deal with investors. They understand how to sell property through auctions. I mean, that list is that long, right?
Yeah.
That do that full time as a real profession. So now we're diluting that with 2,000 yahoos that have watched. And I'll tell you who to blame. It's the television again. The Property Brothers and all the other people. It's easy. It's so easy. You watch TV, you could flip a house with investing $10,000 and make $100,000. Wouldn't you want to do it? If the television told you that you can make $100,000 on one flip within 30 days, you'd be like, okay, where do I sign up?
Yeah.
I get my real estate class. I take my license. I go to a brokerage that hires anyone who's got a pulse. Think about this. There are brokerages out there that allow people to join if they have a pulse.
Yeah.
No minimum standards, no requirements, no prior history checking, nothing. You get your license, you have a pulse, you can fog up a mirror, come on in. We'll let you do whatever you want anytime you like it. Then you get to like 300-400 people in there. Here's my question. How does a broker owner oversee that? Where is the accountability? We know the board's not holding them accountable.
Yeah.
We know the Association of Realtors is not holding them accountable. We know the state of Ohio is not watching over them. So who's responsible? So here's this Yahoo who just got licensed, sold one house a year, meets a cousin of his, and helps him with the biggest investment of his life, who buys $350,000 house and deals with a realtor who's never sold a house.
And goes around telling everyone he's a top agent too. Yeah.
It's like winning a lottery and asking, can you mail me my check? Because post office is so trustworthy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hey, same thing with hips though. You know, it's easy to change a hip out. You know, you just take one out, pull it in, and that's it.
I'm
right?
assuming.
So same as real estate.
I'm assuming, right? I'm assuming. I don't know. We're the only industry that allows that, and I think it's ridiculous. To be honest, I think it starts at the top. I think our board and our division need to have more stringent rules. I think it's almost like if you sold less than 3 houses a year, your requirements for continuing education should be like triple. If you sold less than 3 houses a year, your annual dues should be triple.
I agree.
If you
They
sold
should start off triple. They should start off triple.
triple, everything should triple up if you do below average.
Yeah.
You know, like it's almost like being on a team. Like if you're a pro athlete, nobody wants a loser on a team. It's like, let's get that guy. Like, let's go through draft and draft the guy who's like ranked to be the least one. Like, let's get the 100th pick and pick him first. Nobody does that. Like, no one does that. If you want to be on a winning team, you pick a guy or, a girl who's performing. They don't pick losers to go in the Olympics for the country, which is actually also a very good example. You ever watch Olympics?
Yeah.
You ever watch opening ceremonies?
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah. So like you watch Korea. The Koreans are marching. They're all Koreans. Like you watch China. They're all Chinese. You watch Japan. They're all Japanese. And so forth and so on. You watch Sudan. They're all from Sudan. You watch America. They're Chinese, Korean, Japanese, African American, Jewish, purple, green. It's a melting pot. They're all just marching.
Yeah.
And yet we're talking about how non-diverse we are. How non-inclusive we are. Watch the Olympic opening ceremony. You'll realize how diverse we are within 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Watch all the other countries and be like, That's the place I want to be. There's a whole bunch of people. They all look different. You can't, you can't ignore the facts. You just can't. So sorry, I kind of derailed there.
That's fun.
Olympics. Yeah. So,
So
no part
how do
timers.
we? But the issue that we're seeing though is that clients and people that are uneducated in real estate see all realtors as equal for the most part. So to them, they don't see a difference between hiring somebody who's sold one house in their life, and hiring an expert. So how do we educate consumers, and how do we show people that we're not one of the 2,000 new what's called hip doctors out there?
I think it's all in the presenting the value. I think if you could demonstrate to a client that you cannot entrust someone with if you think about it logically, a real estate transaction, all jokes aside, is probably the largest single investment that a typical family in America makes. Okay, I mean, still, bar none, as horrible as this country is, we're still afforded a right of ownership to a home. It, as much as affordability factor is going out the window, we're still one of the most affordable places on the planet to buy real estate. So since American dream is not dead, since the dream of ownership is still very much so alive, and after pandemic, it's proven itself to be even more alive than ever, because if you've been cooped up for 90 days in a tiny apartment where you can't paint, can't garden, can't go outside, you're like, I want a home. I want a yard. I want to paint. I want projects. That's why Home Depot is so busy, right?
Okay.
So with all that being said, I think the consumer that spends the most money on a single-handed transaction of their life is a professional, full-time, educated, and knowledge real estate agent. It is your responsibility to have your resume put together to deliver that message. I put it back on us, on real estate people. When you're sitting down with a consumer, whoever that may be, somebody you just be interviewed by or somebody is a friend, I think it is our job as industry leaders, quote unquote, is to drive that message. I think we should be the ones educating public to say, hey, it is that important to have all these qualifications, all these requirements, all this knowledge, all this education, all this experience under your belt, negotiating single biggest transaction in your life. So I think it's the consumer that needs the education from our side, from prospective real estate agents. My opinion, 2-3 years from now, we're going to see what will happen before a lot of people will weed themselves out. The consumer is going to eventually realize and say, ooh,
It's not as easy.
right, I should have never done that. And
Yeah, because if all goes well, it's one thing, but there's a lot of times when things don't go well,
That's
and
correct.
then when it comes back to the realtor and they don't know how to handle it because they've never been there.
well, for
before.
anybody listening out there, if you're looking to hire a realtor, okay, let me tell you this. We are in the toughest market that this country has ever seen. And I mean for both the buyers and the sellers. Let me explain. The sellers, it truly is a seller's market now. Would you agree? I mean, they get whatever they want, whatever terms they want. But it's a tough decision for a seller's market, because if they hire an educated, untrained, part-time, who knows what kind of agent, they potentially could lose money.
Yeah.
Almost always lose money.
They could not get the highest possible price and best terms they could get, because the realtor just does not know how to navigate multi-offer situations.
Yeah.
It's not something we always deal with, where they put a house on the market and there's 13 to 15 offers come in at the same time. A brand new agent will simply get lost.
Yeah.
That could cost seller a lot of money.
Absolutely.
As it pertains to buyers, if your agent does not know how to navigate multi-offer situation and put offers that are solid and could stick, you'll be looking for the next 6 years.
Yeah.
And your story will be, you probably have had that happen to you. Oh, we've lost the house. Oh, we've lost the house. Oh, we've lost the house. I mean, you may lose one or two because the market's so tough, but not 15.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah,
right.
it's very true.
So hiring a person who understands how to navigate these waters is definitely not a part-time or a brand new agent. I'll tell you that right now. It really isn't.
Yeah.
You want to hire somebody professional. So if you're looking not to lose money or lose houses, hire accordingly. Just like elections. Vote accordingly. Everything has repercussions. See, I worked that right in there. Everything has repercussions. It does. Everything has repercussions. You hire a bad person, repercussions. You vote accordingly, repercussions. It's all tied in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
Direct correlation.
Where do you think the real estate market's heading in the next year or 2 or 5?
I don't think we're going to hit a bubble. If that's what you're asking, everybody's like, "We're going to hit the bottle. Are we going to bubble out?" I'll give you 4 to 5 reasons why we're not. Okay. So reason number one, when we hit the bubble in 2007, 2008, the lending practices were horrible.
Yeah.
They were truly horrible. I mean, if you had a pulse again and you forgot a mirror, and you told the lender you make $1 million a year, it was like, okay, you make $1 million, we'll give you a house. So lending practices have changed. That's number one, which is really good. They're a lot more tighter. Number two, the down payment programs has also changed. You've got to put money down. Right now, this whole no doc, no down payment, let's borrow 2 mortgages, use the second mortgage for down payment, all of that is gone. Non-conforming is becoming a dinosaur. And so the requirements for down payments are a lot greater. So people have equity. Number three, you guys know this, the market has exploded in the last few years. So the equity by itself in property has skyrocketed. So people that have had the properties, even if they can't afford it right now, because of job loss, COVID problems, divorces, there's all kinds of stuff happening now. They could always sell the property. Back in the day, they had no equity. I mean, they were first mortgage, second mortgage, third mortgage, and they bought it already 10, 15,000 higher than the market. So there was no equity. So everything went to short sales or simple foreclosures. Now, even in a top financial times, you could put a market house and get high top dollar for it, cash out, pay your mortgage, not file bankruptcy, not lose it. And there's 25 buyers waiting for the house to hit the market. So that's number three. Number four, with 75 ships floating in the coast of California with lumber on them, doorknobs, windows, you name it, whatever's on those containers. I think the supply and demand is going to get worse. I think we're not prepared for that just yet as a country. I think more American businesses will come about to open. I'm a firm believer that there'll be a lot more people opening up, like window companies and doorknob companies and local hardware stores. I mean, there'll be a lot more local made American products, which I think we should have done years ago, right? We should be self-sustained, as big as we are, as powerful as we are, as smart as we are.
Why does everything still come from China? Yeah.
We should be self-sustained. That is correct. We should not be borrowing and being in debt, and our trading rules are idiotic. I mean, there's a lot of problems, right? So we should be making things here. We wouldn't be worried about those ships. But again, it's not quite there yet. So we have all that stuff floating out there. Like if your kid wants a Nintendo, maybe next year. But with that being said, I don't think that the cost of any of that stuff is going to go lower. And so that will drive the price of the homes still maintain itself and go up. The window cost, the lumber cost, ordering faucets and toilets and all that stuff. So that number is not going to deplete. Since the cost of construction is going to be up, the cost of resale real estate is going to be up. So those are very directly correlated. If you look at what happened in 2008, the new construction stopped. Nobody wanted to build anymore and so then the lumber, the toilets, the faucets, the windows, there was so much of it. Nobody wanted it because the new builds were not existent. So it flooded the market and the prices dropped. Now, you go to buy and build a new Epcon, every 5 condos, the price goes up.
Yeah.
They raise their prices of base price. And it's simply because of how many windows we need and how many doorknobs we need. So that's number 4. And number 5, I think the consumer in general, if you think about it, here's what I don't understand. A typical consumer could research the cost of building a home, rehabbing a home, figure out what the tile cost, look at basic projects within 3 minutes on Google. Yet they can't figure out how they're being bamboozled by the government and sit there and stare glued to TV and thinking this will be great.
Yeah.
That's the part I'm still kind of baffled by. Like you can figure out how to build a home on your own. Okay, maybe. But you can't figure out that this is wrong. That's the part I haven't connected the dots on yet myself. So the consumer is a lot more educated as it pertains to real estate. So I don't think they're making as many dumb decisions as they used to. And number 6, I think your real estate professionals, again, going back to full-time, professional, ethical people that do it all the time, knowledgeable and experienced, will not allow people to make as many mistakes as we used to. Mm-hmm. I think that boils down to. So you take those 6 things in consideration, and I think we have another 4 to 5 years of strong real estate market, so there's no need to freak out, panic. And if the rates go up, which they did, I mean, nobody talks about it anymore. They're like, oh, they went up. They went from 2.6 to 3.25. Okay, let's be real. 2.6 is not a real rate.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
it is not a real rate. It was like a gift for about 6 months, and if you captured it, yay. But again, at 3.25 to 4.25, it's a good rate.
Absolutely.
You borrowing money anywhere in Europe at 13%,
Yeah.
and people still doing buy real estate. So as we're complaining about America and how horrible it
Free
is,
money.
we're still lending money at a very affordable rate, and even up to 5%. Again, I mean, people are going to be right now like, "Oh, that guy is crazy. He said 5%." It's still a normal rate. I'm sorry to tell you this. Look at any other country. You could borrow money in Czech Republic right now and buy yourself a flat at 11%.
Well, how much was it before the crash of 08?
We were in 5.25,
Yeah.
and people are grabbing money. 5.75. My first home we bought, my wife and I, in Pickerington in 2000. So our son was born in 2001. So we bought our house in 2000. We paid like 5.25 as our rate. And we were like tickled. We thought it was great. We were in real estate.
Yep.
So again, even if the rate goes up a little bit, which it went up to like 3.25, it's not enough to destroy the economy. And oh my God, the world's going to end. No, it's not. We're still lending money at the lowest cost possible across the globe.
So do you think prices will continue to go up locally here in Columbus or nationally everywhere?
Everywhere. I think we're going to see price either remaining the same at the minimum, which is not possible, but it'll continue to grow. It may not be as steep of a chart, but it'll adjust itself, but still to an incline. It will not go down. No, it will not flatline or go down. It'll be up. So the time is now. If you want to buy a house, it'll be more expensive 2 days from now. It truly will be.
Well, people always say that when prices go up, they have to come down at some point. So when do you think that'll happen, or what do you think has to happen for real estate prices to stabilize?
I don't think they'll go down. I don't see that.
Ever?
I do not see prices in real estate going down. Okay, so let's dissect this for a second. So you guys are in market all the time. You sell a lot of houses. We talked about it earlier, at 100 homes a year, you do a lot of real estate. Mm-hmm. What I'm noticing now is that any property in Central Ohio, particularly Columbus and very popularly Blackleg, Hannah, Hilliard, Grove City, under 300,000, you now have out-of-state investing companies
California and all them big guys.
making bids on properties, competing
Yep.
with a local buyer. Would you agree?
Yeah.
2-week close, cash, over asking,
Yeah.
no inspection,
crazy.
one contingency. Can we look at the
Inspection.
HOA docs
Oh, yeah.
to make sure we can rent
Rent,
it?
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
So you ask yourself, why is it that very smart people that have not millions, billions of dollars are investing in real estate in Columbus, Ohio, and buying $300,000 houses like they're candy?
Yeah.
Left and right.
Do they expect the market to slow down or prices to decrease?
Not at all.
Are they predicting that the maybe investment market, the stock market, may take a little plunge or a little bit of a correction? Very possible. But they're predicting that real estate market, I don't think it'll correct itself to go down. What we're probably going to end up, the correction will be different. Let me put it this way. So we had this in 2007, 2008, right? And then it went like this. Now we have this. I think what's going to happen is going to go like that. You're not going to see it flat line or go down. I think we're going to go from here to maybe this. But even if it does this, it still will bring steadily 5 to 7%, which is normal in profit to owning real estate. Now we're at 15 to 22%. I mean, it's not normal. Like, well, again, just like the rate at 2.6 is not normal, and we adjust to 3.25, everybody's like, oh, that's normal. If we're at 18 to 22% increase in prices and we get to 7%, that's normal. Again, it won't be like this. But I predict that the prices will increase. They'll continue to increase, not at the crazy rate that they are now. And I predict we're going to still continue to have shortage of real estate because construction is going to be expensive. Land's going to be expensive.
Yeah, I saw on the Board of Realtors put out a thing that 50% of houses in our local market in the first half of the year were bought by investment companies. So it's crazy, like that. That basically just shrunk our supply in half for retail buyers.
Correct.
So.
And those buyers are still there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And these buyers are getting very, very tired of it too.
Correct.
Just like left and right, we go and check out these houses, and before we step in, I call the agent. I'm like, hey, any offers? Hey, Boris, we have 2 offers from Cali, for two investment firms in California. I'm like, cool,
Right.
left and right. But yeah, I mean, we'll continue to see it grow. Let's wrap up this podcast. Do you
Yeah.
have any
questions to you?
Any questions? Any finishing statements?
Not at the moment, no.
No.
Cool. Well, yeah, Vadim, thanks for
Thanks for being our
stopping by.
first guest. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Of course. I hope I didn't screw anything up.
No.
I think we all learned a lot, and it should be a good podcast to listen to. So,
Awesome.
Only hurt some feelings.
I hope so.
Feelings are like, well,
You can take away